Namaskar, everyone, and welcome to those who came just at the beginning or during the Dharma Chakra. We will be having a program over the next 4 days where we will focus primarily on Baba's contributions to the world, and there are a lot of them, and also on the service projects in the New York sector that are the living example of his philosophy. And our first talk today will be by Dada Vedaprajinananda. And Dada Vedaprajinananda joined Ananda Marga in 1970. And he has been particularly interested in PROUT, Progressive Utilization Theory, for more than 50 years. In the early 1970s, he founded the first PROUT newspapers in the USA. They were called Sadvipra, and the other one was called Universal Times. He's also the author of a number of books, and you can hear his musical contributions on CD as well. So welcome, Dada Vedaprajinananda. And our schedule is very tight. I suggest that people put their questions in the chat if they have them. We're asking people to do the impossible, which is to put in 30 minutes, what is much more than that in terms of content, especially PROUT. But so please put your questions there, and maybe Dada can answer them later unless he can manage to finish in less than 30 minutes. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar, and thank you for the introduction. And I have a presentation, a slideshow, which will help me a little bit. And as you said, it's a difficult subject to do in 30 minutes. I'll do my best. I have my clock out in front of me, and I'm going to be strict with the time. Okay, so we're talking about P.R. Sarkar, Baba's contribution to economics, and we're looking at the Progressive Utilization Theory. And I looked at the participants list. I think a lot of you have familiarity with this, so that helps me also. I don't have to go into every detail, but if in case you don't know it, I'm also giving some suggestions of how you can find out more. So let's look at it. Recently I wrote a book. You can see in my picture. It's called, maybe you can see it. It doesn't work good with my background. Anyway, it's called PROUT Explained. It's a trick here. I'm using the trick background. Oh, now you got it. Whoops, and it disappeared. Anyway, it's a book about PROUT, but it's for people, not just Margis, anybody. But I was stumped by the first part of it because PROUT begins on a spiritual basis. And Baba says it's the cosmic consciousness is our father, Prakriti is our mother, and this universe is our homeland. So, and we inherit this earth as members of the human family. And this is called cosmic inheritance. So I was stumped. How am I going to do this? I don't want to talk about the thought flow of the cosmic consciousness on the first page of such a book. I don't want to talk about that, although eventually people have to find out. But I got a help from that because I knew that there's a concept in the West called the commons, the common land that people can use. In Europe, some of the farmers used to graze, they had common lands, and then it was stopped. And there's even a deeper concept called the universal commons. And let's see, I'm going to put on a slide here, if I have it. Yeah. So in European political texts, the Commonwealth was the totality of material riches of the world, such as air, the water, the soil, and the seed, and all of nature's bounty was regarded as the inheritance of humanity as a whole to be shared together. This is a direct quote. I didn't make this up. So it's the inheritance of humanity. It's already there. So anyway, it's a concept that has been floated before. Baba's not original with this, but the idea that why is it the inheritance? Because it comes from the cosmic consciousness. That's original. And now, the idea of this whole premise is that we should share this earth and then the resources like a family, a joint family lives in a house. No one says these plates are mine and these forks are mine. We share them. So how are we going to do that? So, there's an expression that says that the devil is in the details. Everyone has good ideas. We're going to live together, but how are you going to do it? And so fortunately, in the Progressive Utilization Theory, Baba is very detailed about what's going to happen, and which is not so like if you study Marxism, really the post-capitalist society is not really explained so much. But here, So anyway, Baba calls this Commonwealth our cosmic inheritance. So I'll give a few of the details. One of the details, about how to organize the economic enterprises is called the three-tier economy. And basically, people have, maybe some of you have heard this, but I'll just go through it very quickly, is that there are a certain sphere, the small businesses, which are like very small businesses with few employees, and they deal with non-essential items. And these can be run privately as private ownership, partnerships, families can run them. So this is where private enterprise would flourish in a proudest society. But when we get to level of organization where there's more employees and they start to deal with essential products, then private ownership is not recommended in the PROUT system. So what is recommended is the cooperatives. And the cooperatives is real cooperatives. This is where I say real because in the Soviet Union, they used to have something called cooperatives, but they were just state-owned enterprises. No, these are not state-owned enterprises. These are owned by the people who work there. So they're employee-owned. And there's no dichotomy of management and labor because the employees are also the owners. And we have some businesses in America. If you ever bought King Arthur flour, that's an employee-owned company. Bob's Red Mill Flours also recently became employee-owned. So it exists. So the employees will own that. They will elect the boards of directors and the management. And you'll see this, today, and most of the businesses, at least the big dollar businesses, are run by corporations. And corporations are not democratic. Cooperative is democratic. The corporation is run by the shareholders. And who are the shareholders? The people with the most money. The cooperative is local. The corporation is absentee owners. The shareholders can live in different states, different countries even. So this is a more democratic model of organization. So the cooperative is going to be the method of organization of the future. But there are certain enterprises which are even cooperatives are not appropriate for, and we need a different kind of organization. And these are what Baba calls the key industries. I call them the public sector. And this is what we advocate here is public ownership and management. And what are the key industries? Communication, transportation, mineral extraction, production of basic things which the manufacturing sector needs. This affects the whole society. It affects even the future of the planet. You think of mineral extraction. Some company we're gonna make money, and this is our. What about the climate? So are you going to let the private people do this, or should there be public? Not oversight. We don't want to say, okay, you'll do it, but we're going to watch you. No, we're not going to watch you. You're not going to do it even. You're out of this sector. And this is what, so it's to reverse privatization in this sphere. It's very important. And public ownership means ownership by the state government, local government, not by central government, which was done in the Soviet Union with disaster. So we want local ownership. And local ownership is easy in the United States because we have a federal system. It means the states are there. But there are governments. France has a unitary system. They don't have a strong state government. And here Baba recommends public boards should be set up to run these things. And in the US, we even have an example of a vast public board, which is called the Tennessee Valley Authority, which was set up in the 1930s. To run the generation of electricity in the South. They were very successful. So public ownership and management. So this is the three-tier economy, and this is a revolution. This is a revolutionary concept, and even many of the so-called progressive people, they don't have any idea what they would do. You even ask Bernie Sanders or AOC, they don't know which would be cooperatives, which would be private. So Baba is very clear about this, and I think we can help a lot of people to find out what should be done. So this is one of the things that has to be changed. Now, PROUT also recommends some other things regarding the reorganization of the economy. So here we turn to economic reorganization. And the idea is, How can we create a world where there's economic opportunity no matter where you live? And that's a big thing. You know, like you may live in an area where there's plenty of jobs, plenty of opportunity, but you may also live in a place you say, I got to get out of here. There's nothing for me to do. You reach the age of 18 and you said, I'm leaving this place. There's nothing here. People leave their countries even. They swim across the Mediterranean Sea or come across the Rio Grande. They sell their children to smugglers to take them over. Why? Because there's no opportunity. So there's no opportunity in these places. I'm sorry, my phone. I was thinking my phone never rings, but it certainly rings during this. Anyway, so there's no opportunity. So how can we alleviate that? How can we change that? So here's what PROUT recommends. We want balanced economies. A balanced economy is where there's manufacturing, there's services, there's agriculture, there's industries which help agriculture, all of these things. So this is what is a balanced economy. And we want decentralized economy. So decentralized, it means you don't put all the good stuff on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and then in the middle, you know, people have to fend for themselves. You know, we have a Rust Belt in the USA right now. There's nothing going on there. So we have to decentralize, and we have to provide economic opportunity and cultural opportunity and educational opportunity in all the different places. And so that prosperity should be everywhere, not in a few favorite places. So this is very important within a country, but it's also even more important. Most of these cases of severe migration, which I've been explaining, are caused by the disparity between countries, and that's a legacy of the colonial period. So here the remedy for this is to create self-sufficient economic zones around the world. You know, there's an expression, we say certain countries did a banana republics. Yeah, Central America was always called the banana republics. Why? Because all they have is bananas, they have agriculture. And the West always said, okay, don't worry about that. You send us the bananas, we'll send you all the machines and stuff like that. But what happens is those regions become impoverished and they become dependent, and there's no opportunity. And that's why why is there a border crisis? Because these countries have been decimated. And not only on top of that, these countries have been colonized, and not only colonized in the past, they're still under the thumb of the United States and big countries around the world. Europe has their thumb on the scale, and Africa and all over the world. Even China is starting to move in. So these countries, if they're allowed to develop, then they won't. People won't migrate here. Why will someone migrate here to come to live in North Dakota when they could be living in Mexico? It doesn't make sense. But when there's no jobs, then people will go up to the snowy country, snowland, you know, and suffer a little bit, but at least they're going to have a job. So we have to have balanced economies and self-sufficient economic zones. And these, some of you might have heard the word Samaj. So there needs to be a Samaj movement. And these things are going to be met with tremendous resistance. So suppose there's a country in South America and they say, no, we don't want to just make bananas, we want to make manufacturing, want to do this one. They're going to have a lot of problem from local people who will oppose it, and also the people from the North will oppose it, and they do. And you've seen this whole standoff of the U.S. and Cuba is really, it's partly a relic of the Cold War, but it's also because of the colonialization that has continued. So this is another thing. Economic reorganization is a very important part of PROUT. Balanced economies, decentralized economies, and self-sufficient zones. Now, most people, when they start a discussion of PROUT, they start with the principles. I didn't want to do that because I want to show what it looks like. So now you get a picture of what it's going to look like. Peter, cooperatives and private enterprises as key industries, and balanced. So all of this is there, but you have to have principles to make it work. You need two P's. We're going to talk about the two P's: the principles and the people. So we need the principles. So what are the principles? So PROUT has some fundamental principles. I'm not sure if I wrote them. So the first one, it addresses wealth accumulation. So should anybody be allowed to accumulate billions and billions and billions of dollars? Should it? Or does society have a say? PROUT says society has a say. Then the second principle, but then when you bring this up, people say, well, no, how are we going to run this society if people don't have the incentive? If people don't have the incentive of making billions of dollars, how is anybody going to work? This is this crazy argument in a way, but this is their argument. So the PROUT says no. The second principle says, we want to utilize all the resources for the good and happiness of all, but then we have to learn how to distribute them. And this distribution should not be grabbing, which is we have today, but it shouldn't be just you cut the pie and give everyone the same slice. The distribution should be rational. And what is rational distribution? It means that when there are scarce products, you give them to create incentive to people who are really helping the society. So in the days when computers are common now, but there was a day when they just existed as giant blocks in universities. And then when the first portable or personal ones came out, they're rare. And when we have a rare product, you should give them to the people like the scientists, the doctors, the teachers who can use them. And when they become common, give them to everybody. And this is called rational distribution. And when we have rational distribution, people who are doing good work, they will get a little bit more amenities. And the thing here is that we want in the economic house a floor and a ceiling. The ceiling is the first principle. There's a ceiling. You can't shoot through the roof because your greed is going to result in the deprivation of others. And we want a floor. No one should sink below. People should have the minimum. And if there's anything extra, let's reward people. So this is the principle here. I'm also quickly running out of the time, and but it's very important. So we want rational distribution, not unlimited grabbing. Then the third principle. Second principle talks about we're going to utilize the resources of this world, the physical, metaphysical, and even spiritual. There's spiritual vibrations in this world. The metaphysical, I feel it means the aesthetic quality. So a forest is not just physical, you measure up the lumber, but it's also the aesthetic. That's metaphysical. And it could be spiritual, a church where people have meditated and has certain vibration, the holy place, ancient burial ground. Anyway, this is, we have to utilize this. But then what about human resources? And human resources, according to PROUT, should be developed. That, let's say, like in Afghanistan, they're worried when the Taliban takes over, maybe the women won't be able to stay in the school. So if you deprive 50% of the human population the possibility of being educated, you're cutting half of the human wealth off. So PROUT advocates for making the full use of the human qualities of the unit and the collective body, and to maintain also a balance. This is a very important concept, a balance of individual good and collective good. So under communism, the state was glorified, and under capitalism, the private sector is glorified. But we need a balance. And even what we're talking about cooperatives won't work until people understand that, and they have a feeling that they have to work also for the society, for themselves. So this is what PROUT is talking about in the third principle. And then there's a fourth principle, and there should be adjustment between all the different kinds of utilizations. What is the adjustment? Really, the adjustment is so that we make use of the scarcest resources that are available, and we should make sure that they're not wasted. So like Einstein used to work in Princeton. So, I mean, they had choices that they could say, Einstein, you have to sweep the hall and clean the windows and everything. So do you want him doing that? He can work in the laboratory, other people, because it's a rare quality that he has. We should let him do his rare quality, and other people will do the physical things. In certain communist countries, they say, no, we're a worker society, everybody has to work. It's a foolish concept. In Cambodia, they killed the intellectuals. They took it so far. The crazy thing. So anyway, we have to have a balance, adjustment of all of these utilizations. And then there's an interesting principle here, and there should be these different kinds of concepts, the policies we have, who's going to work here, which mineral we're going to extract, and this and that. This can change according to time, place, and person. And that's what PROUT says there should be a built-in change mechanism. So these are the principles upon which PROUT runs. And then you need the people. Without the people, the whole thing will degenerate. Like if you ever read the book Animal Farm, it's about the satire on what happened to communism. So to rectify this thing, I don't have time to explain about Animal Farm, you look it up. Baba gave a new theory of history and leadership. So I used to be a history student in college and high school, and so I was really interested. So what Baba is saying here is that there's a flow of society, and this flow is defined by the psychic qualities of the leaders of a particular era. And society goes through a well-defined cycle of where there are toiling people, and then quickly brave martial people come as the leaders, and then they cede their authority to intellectuals, and then finally merchants come and they guide the society. And then when exploitation comes too much, Marx said it. He said it'll be a revolution. Baba also said there'll be a revolution, but Baba gives a more nuanced idea of how that revolution would be and who would make the revolution. Because on the PROUT concept, we said workers don't make the revolution. They're a lot of the workers, the rank and file. They don't really, like Lenin was not a worker, and and Che Guevara was a doctor. So they don't. It's these intellectuals and martial people who've been forced. They've been subjugated, and essentially in this era, everyone is struggling for their existence. Whether you're an intellectual, you have a martial concept, or you want to protect people, you have to make your wages. You're living from dollar to paycheck, and you could be thrown out of work. Everybody in this era becomes a worker, and those alert ones and brave ones, they create revolution. Now, the problem is that after revolution, the cycle goes again, and the military comes, and the intellectuals come, the merchants come, and it goes on. And is exploitation always going to happen? So we need a new person who is not one of these classes, and this is called the Sadvipra. That's why I named my newspaper Sadvipra, the first one. The Sadvipra is someone who follows Yama and Niyama, and not only follows it, it's within the bones and the blood of that person. And when we get those people, they will stop the flow, not the flow of the cycle, but they will stop the exploitation. So I like to say that history is like a roller coaster. So the one era comes, exploitation comes, and boom, it goes down. And then it goes up and down. So how to stop the down? The Sadvipra will come in and bring the next era. So this is the flow of the social cycle. And when you have those Sadvipras, then the cooperatives will work, and the decentralization will work, and regional self-sufficient zones will work. Everything will work. But if you don't have good people, nothing will work. And this has been our difficulty, really. This is a big challenge ahead of us. And then finally, there's a social cycle. And so I just explained it here. Okay, warriors, so workers, warriors, intellectuals, capitalists, yeah. And then Sadvipras. So this is the social cycle. So this is it's a key component, and you have to read the book Human Society, and then it's a fascinating read, especially Human Society Part 2. You'll see how history has unfolded. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, now there's another part I left out. I didn't put it. We have to have proper government. So in Problems of the Day, there's a section about how democracy can be improved, raising the standard of the people who vote. And there's also a section about how we can move towards a global government. So this is in a nutshell, actually, what is there. And here are the books to read about. But I want to, before I finish, I have a very short anecdote, because people say, well, when is this going to happen? I have an anecdote which gives a timeline. I can give you a timeline, at least based on this anecdote. But here's some selection of books that on the left side is Baba's books. You can get them at pathofbliss.com. And then this book that I wrote, PROUT Explained, and then a more detailed book is Dada Maheshwarananda's After Capitalism. And if you want to learn about the fundamental principles, Ramesh has written a whole book about that, Principles for a Balanced Economy. And then you want to go detailed on how to implementation tools to change the world. So I have a little anecdote. It take me 3 minutes, and I'm just on time. I say, in 2004, it was the 25th anniversary of Baba's visit to Fieschi, Switzerland. So there was like a congregation held there, and some of the luminaries from that time spoke. So I went there, and Dada Gunamuktananda, we were there. And then one brother who spoke was named Bodhishvar. So if you've ever seen the pictures of Fieschi, there's one guy always standing in front of Baba like this. That's Bodhishvar. He took Baba all around the place. So one day, Bodhishvar and his 5-year-old daughter were with Baba. And then Bodhishvar said to Baba, he said, will I see the Sadvipra Samaj? Baba said, you won't see it, but she will. So now we'll do the arithmetic. So Bodhishvar, he's kind of my age, could be younger. So he's born, let's say, from 45 to 1950. He'll live 80 years. So that's the average, could live a little longer. So 80 years, what does that take you to 2030, okay? But his daughter, who is 5 years old at the time, 75, she can live to 2050 or 2060 or something like that. So sometime between 2030 and 2060, it should happen, at least according to this thing. So it's very near. It's very near. And your children, your grandchildren will live under the PROUT system. Speaking about that, I'm paraphrasing Nikita Khrushchev. He came to the US and scared the daylights out of everybody. He pounded his fist on the UN, podium, and then he went on television in America. He said, your grandchildren will live under communism. And everybody freaked out. But I say, but not with anger and not with a fist, your grandchildren will live under PROUT. Okay, my time is up as far as I see it. Any questions?
Dadaji, there are a few questions in the chat.
There are?
Yeah. Dada, you did an exemplary job of squeezing into 30 minutes. We've got tightly scheduled another program right after. There are questions in the chat. If you could answer those in the chat.
Okay, I'll do what I can. I'll see what's there. And also,
okay.
People can always write to me if you have any questions like that. Demand more. You can write to me at any time. You find me around. So I think there's not a problem. So anyway, that's it. I'm sorry we don't have more time, but it's also good to be condensed in a way. So I hope this is food for thought. I looked at the participant list. I see a lot of you're old timers. You know the score. Anyway, this is just something to refresh your memory. So thanks a lot, and let's carry on then.
Namaskar, Dada.